Hello everyone. Welcome to another General English session. Today we are moving on to a new chapter titled I Stand With You Against Disorder by Jeannette Armstrong. This is an autobiographical writing where the author proudly speaks about her tribe, the Okanagans. We get to know many things about the Okanagan people, and there are many things that we can learn from them to be better human beings. As the title suggests, I stand with you against the disorder. Jeannette Armstrong is highlighting here a lesson taught by her tribe. That is, when there is some injustice happening around her, what is her responsibility as an Okanagan? She should raise her voice against that injustice. She should fight to restore order. Because if it affects somebody else at one point, later on it can affect us too. And that is something that we are witnessing these days in the form of a virus, right? And Jeannette Armstrong tells us that her community has taught her also to bond with everything around her, be it nature or people. And unfortunately, in the so-called civilized societies that we are living in now, we have, with the advent of technology, we have so much of depersonalized communication. What do we mean by depersonalized communication? We, of course, communicate a lot with others, but do we really feel the things that we say? And because of such depersonalized communication, we have a set of people who are even entertained by violence without being affected by it. We can see land being destroyed and polluted, and people, including us, seem not to worry as long as it is not on our doorstep. So let's listen to what Jeannette Armstrong speaks about the Okanagans, and let's learn from them what it is like to be a human being.
Now, let's move on to the text. Jeannette Armstrong begins the article by describing her birthplace. I read from the text, I am from the Okanagan, a part of British Columbia, very dry and hot. Around my birthplace are two rocky mountain ranges, the Cascades on one side and the Selkirks on the other. The main river that flows through our lands is the Columbia. So as we see from this description and this image that you have before you, her birthplace is blessed by nature's bounty. You have two mountain ranges on either side, and in between there is the river Columbia. What else does she tell us about her family? I read, my mother is a river Indian. The Kettle River people are in charge of the fisheries in the northern parts of the Columbia River system in our territories. My father's people are mountain people. They occupied the northern part of British Columbia known as the Okanagan Valley. My father's people were hunters. My name is passed on from my father's side of the family and is my great-grandmother's name. And don't we also have such a custom at times? Many of us are also named after our great-grandmothers, right? So Jeannette Armstrong also got her name from her paternal grandmother. I continue reading. I am associated with my father's side, but I pride and a responsibility to the river through my mother's birth and my family education. So that is who I am. Wow, what a wonderful introduction, isn't it? From her introduction, we not only get to know about her, but also the Okanagans in general. How they consider nature as an important element in their lives, and how nature-human relationship is interconnected. Usually we talk about our right to the resources, to the natural resources, but rarely do we think about our responsibility towards nature. But societies, indigenous societies, that is INDIGENOUS, which means societies which originally belong to the place. So she belongs to such a tribe, Okanagans, right? So believe that they have a responsibility to the nature. That is why I quote Jeannette Armstrong has elsewhere said, "When I see the land dying, it is my own body that is being torn, deforested, and poisoned by so-called development. Every plant, fish, insect, bird, and animal that disappears is part of me dying. As an Okanagan, I know all their names, that is, names of even these, simple things in nature, and I touch them with my spirit. I feel it every day as my grandmother and my father did. I know that without my land and my people, I am not alive, simply flesh waiting to die." So that is the importance that they give to nature. And that is what is described. I continue reading from the text. "When I introduce myself to my own people in my own language, I describe these things because it tells them what my responsibilities are and what my goal is, what I need to carry with me, what I project, what I teach, and what I think about, what I must do and what I can't do." That is to be highlighted. It's not just your rights always, but also things that you shouldn't do to nature. That is important. So from this, we get an idea not just about Armstrong, but also about the Okanagans. After describing about the geographical features of her birthplace and her family, Jeannette Armstrong now goes on to describe about her language. As we all know, language is an important element of a culture. The language tells us a lot about the culture that it is part of. So, Armstrong tells us about how they define themselves as Okanagan people in their language. But in the beginning itself, she tells us that it will be difficult to convey it or to explain it to us in English. I read, the way we talk about ourselves as Okanagan people is difficult to replicate in English. Replicate means to reproduce, to explain the meaning of the word Okanagan or what their identity is. It is very difficult to explain it to us in English. She goes on to say, when we say the Okanagan word for ourselves, we are actually saying the ones who are dream and land together. That is our original identity. We have a word ourself to denote to our identity, right? But in the Okanagan, when they say ourself, it is not as simple as that. It means many things beyond the word, what the word means. So one example is this. That is, ones who are dream and land together. And there's one more thing to be noted here. Throughout this article, more than using the first person pronoun I, she uses words like we, Okanagans. So that shows the community spirit. One important thing that we know about the Okanagan community or tribe is that for them, individuals come last. It is the community that matters first. So they're all whatever happens to an individual affects the community and vice versa. So they give more importance to the community, and community in the sense not family but something beyond that. Whoever belongs to your tribe, that is as important to you as a family member or even more than your own self. So that is one thing that we have to know. So coming back to this phrase, the ones who are dream and land together. Let's take the first keyword there, dream. Because as Armstrong goes on to say, before anything else, we are the living, dreaming earth pieces. That is how she describes their identity. What are we? Living, dreaming earth pieces. Here again we find the word dream. So what does this word mean? What do the Okanagans mean by the word dream in their language? Dream in English, we all know. But is that what she means when she uses the word dream? Not exactly. So that is a problem with language actually. To make it more clear to you, maybe we can take the example of Onam. We have all heard about Onam, right? And we can speak about Onam as much as, as long as anybody wants to hear about it. But in Malayalam, right? There are some terms related to Onam which are which are an integral part of the culture, of the Malayali culture. So if you try to translate many of the words associated with Onam, like let's say Pookalam or the kind of Onasadhya, when we translate it into English, we can use the words like floral carpet or feast, but it fails to convey the kind of emotions associated with those terms, right? So that is the same difficulty that she's trying to explain here. The term for to describe their identity in their language cannot be easily translated and explained to another person in their language, because there are the certain limitations of that language. So that is why. But she's trying very hard to explain their identity to us in English, considering the limitation. So what is dream? She has used the word dream because that is the closest word that approximates the Okanagan, which means that is the close word that she can find in English which would define the Okanagan identity. But at the same time, she tells us our word doesn't precisely mean dream. Then what does it mean? When they say Okanagan, or the ones who are dream and land together, what they mean by dream is not swapnam, but the dream means the unseen part of our existence as human beings. So that is a connection between that term and dream, because dream also, it is something that is beyond our comprehension, right? Which is not experienced by the conscious self. So that is why she says dream in their language means the unseen part of our existence as human beings. They are not bothered about the surface level meanings. They go beyond that. So it can be anything like the mind, spirit, or the intellect. Beyond our physical existence. Mind, spirit, intellect. So that is why she says we are mind as well as matter. Most of the times, what is a mistake that mankind does? We focus more on matter. We don't focus much on mind. But for Okanagans, mind is important like matter. That is why she says we are dream, memory, and imagination. See? So what she's trying to convey here is that they are not just what they seem, but what is unseen or what is beyond our general understanding is what their identity really means. She continues to describe their identity in the next paragraph too. I read, another part of the word means that if you take a number of strands of hair or twine, place them together, and then rub your hands and bind them together, they become one strand. You use this thought symbolically when you make twine, thread, and coiled baskets. Did you get that? What a beautiful imagery she brings in there to describe the Okanagan identity. How are they? How is each individual, what is the relationship of each individual in the community to others in the community? She uses this image, that is, how we have certain strands or single twine, and we take them and then we place them in our hand, rub our hands together. What happens? It becomes a thread. All the single pieces gets united. Right? So that is how each Okanagan is connected to the others in the community. That is how the individuals make the community itself. So that is why she is very important. The word Okanagan, the other part of the word, refers to us being tied into and part of everything. So she clarifies this dream, the word dream, more by this, that is, it is part of ourselves that is tied into and part of everything. So we find ourselves in many things around us. In other Okanagans, so we are part of community. In nature itself, different elements of nature. Also, we find ourselves. That is when we will feel like loving the things around us, right? So that is their response. That is why they feel responsible towards the things around them. So that is what she is trying to explain here. And that is explained very beautifully using this imagery. So it is the dream part of ourselves forming our community. So that is what the word means to them. And family and self comes after community. Isn't it an ideal thing? Jeannette Armstrong has now described about her birthplace, her family, and her community. Why did she tell all this to us? What is the need for us to know about all these things? She says, I read, I explain this to try to bring our whole society closer to that kind of understanding, because without that deep connection to the environment, to the earth, to what we actually are, to what humanity is, we lose our place and confusion and chaos enter. Yes, we know that very well right now, isn't it? Because we have been limited in many ways by the virus. And did we ever imagine a few months back that we'll all be driven to such a situation where we'll not even be visiting our favorite places for so long? So this has been proved in our case. So that is why she says, why does she explain about the whole society, her society? That is because the Okanagans teach us how to be deeply connected to the environment, to the earth, to what we actually are, to what humanity is. Because if we don't have this kind of understanding, we'll end up in confusion. Let's learn more about the Okanagan Individual. I read, when we Okanagans speak of ourselves as individuals, we speak of 4 main capacities that operate together. The physical self, the emotional self, the thinking intellectual self, and the spiritual self. The 4 selves join us to the rest of creation. So that's an idea of individual as far as the Okanagan community is concerned. Each individual is not an isolated being, but the individual, first thing you have to remember is the individual has 4 main capacities, and this is very important. The physical self is there, the emotional self is there, the thinking intellectual self is there, and also the spiritual self is there. So as we discussed earlier, how a person is not just what we see outside, but also many things together in him. Mind, intellect, imagination, spirituality, everything along with the physical self makes a person complete. Not just that, each individual is connected to the rest of the creation. So that is what is important in their concept. Like most of these native tribes have this concept of our one skin. So that conveys it. For them, the skin is where we feel, right? So when we feel, it is like what if we have one skin, the whole community shares one skin. So what happens is when one feels agony, the others can experience the same. So that is the kind of oneness and unity. Earlier also we discussed about the symbol of the twine becoming to a thread, the unity within the community. So that is again reiterated here through these 4 capacities that operate together. All these are functioning together in an individual and also connecting the individual to the rest of the creation. So not rest of mankind alone, creation, which includes elements of nature too. First, let us discuss about the physical self. What does Jeannette Armstrong or the Okanagans teach us about the physical self? I read, Okanagans teach that the body is earth itself. What a novel concept, right? We say that we have to be connected to the earth or the environment. But have we ever thought of ourselves as earth? Let's take the example of a newborn baby. We've all seen newborn babies, right? But have we ever thought, or have we ever tried to look at the world from their point of view? Researchers often say that as far as newborn babies are concerned, maybe from 1 month to 4 or even 6 to 7 months, they are not able to differentiate themselves from the environment or anything around them. They don't realize about their identity as being separate from the things around them. What a beautiful condition to be in, right? So that is something like, what she tells about the concept is also like that. They try to carry on that stage of innocence even to their adulthood, is what we understand. Okay, I continue to read. Our flesh, blood, and bones are earth body. In all cycles in which earth moves, so does our body. We are everything that surrounds us, including the vast forces we only glimpse. If we cannot continue as an individual life form, we dissipate back into the larger self. Dissipate means dissolve. We go back to the larger self or the earth or whatever that accommodates us. So that is, body is earth. And why do they say that? What do they mean by that? That is, our flesh, blood, everything is earth body. Okay, and any changes that happens around us reflects in our life too. And if we cannot continue as an individual, we go back to the larger self. I continue to read. As Okanagans, we say the body is sacred. It is the core of our being which permits the rest of the self to be. It is the great gift of our existence. Our word for body literally means the land dreaming capacity. So that is again important. They consider the body as sacred. So obviously when the body is considered as sacred, since body is earth, earth is considered as sacred too. And she says it is the core of our being. It is the body that decides how we are. And so that is why she's kind of reiterating or stressing the importance of remaining healthy, keeping our body pure, because it is this body that helps us to be in a perfect state. And since we are connected to others, if one person is sacred or pure, the other people also will be like that. So that is why it's a great gift of our body is a gift of our existence. And the word for body in their language is the land dreaming capacity. So that is why she says, again, a dream, earlier itself she mentioned, it is not the English meaning of dream, but the kind of seeing beyond what is seen with our naked eyes, beyond our understanding things that is not really, trying to understand things that is not really before us, that we can see with our naked eyes. So that is very important as far as Okanagans are concerned. And as I told you earlier, in conclusion, we also learn since she's actually kind of teaching us about the Okanagan vocabulary. We have learned many things about her geographical location, her family, her community, and their language. So, and we've learned a lot from her experiences and that of her community, which is not separate. And again, one important thing that she suggests through this autobiographical writing that we have to understand is today, when people forget about their heritage, here is a person who belongs to a tribe and she's so proud of her heritage and her language. And so she wants to keep it alive through her writings and to convey their teachings to the society, because she feels that that is very important in today's time when we are becoming more and more selfish and kind of settling into our own cocoons, which is not what is ideal or expected.